Ever feel like traditional organizations are stuck?
Yeah.
Like in the past, too slow, too bureaucratic, not really designed for all the challenges that we're facing today.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. We're still clinging to these old hierarchies and these bureaucracies that were designed for a totally different world.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a world becoming increasingly complex and interconnected. Those models aren't cutting it anymore, which is why I find Vic so fascinating,
Yeah.
because they're not just tinkering around the edges. They're proposing this radical new way to think about organizations, something they call pods.
Pods, short for Programmable Organizational Domains, are essentially self-governing entities. They're powered by software, artificial intelligence, and blockchain technology. It's like taking all the best aspects of a traditional organization. So you've got the collaboration, the shared goals, but then you're supercharging those with the speed, transparency, intelligence of modern technology.
Okay. I'm intrigued, but I need more. What exactly does a pod look like?
Sure. Imagine a group of people working together on this complex project. Let's say they're developing a new renewable energy technology. In a traditional organization, you might have teams spread out across different departments,
Right.
each with their own hierarchies and communication silos.
Uh-huh.
Decision making would be slow, keeping track of everyone's contributions and progress would be like a nightmare.
Yeah. I could see how that would stifle innovation.
Definitely.
So how would a pod be different?
In a pod, those barriers dissolve. You have a diverse group, each with their own expertise, coming together in a digital space. Their roles, responsibilities, decision-making, these are all defined in software. And that's what creates a really efficient and transparent system.
So instead of relying on managers and committees, it's all about algorithms and smart contracts.
Precisely. And that's where the programmable aspect comes in. You can think of it almost like coding the DNA of an organization. You define the rules, the incentives, the decision-making processes all upfront in code. And that ensures everything runs smoothly and efficiently.
What about the human element? Does all this automation mean that people become less important?
That's one of the most common misconceptions about EXO's approach. They're not trying to replace humans, but augment our capabilities. They're using AI to handle routine tasks, the boring stuff, and that frees up humans to focus on what we do best: creative problem solving, strategic thinking, and building meaningful connections.
So it's like having this super efficient, always-on assistant
Yeah.
who can take care of all the boring stuff, allowing us to focus on the big picture.
Imagine an AI agent that can verify transactions on the blockchain, or one that can manage complex data sets, or even one that facilitates communication between different members of the pod. This allows the human members to really dedicate their time and energy to the tasks that require human ingenuity, human intuition.
That's compelling. But how does this play out in the real world? What would a pod look like in action?
Okay. Let me give you a few examples.
Right.
One of the key areas where ICSO has been focusing their efforts is in the field of scientific research.
Okay, that makes sense. Research often involves collaboration between people from all over the world. How are pods changing that?
ICSO has been working with a number of research organizations to create what they call research pods. These are decentralized networks of scientists. They can collaborate seamlessly on projects, sharing data, insights, and resources without the usual barriers of institutions and funding silos.
No more battling for grants or waiting months for peer review. That would be huge for scientific progress.
Exactly. It's about accelerating the pace of discovery, removing the friction and the inefficiencies that plague traditional research models. And because everything is transparent and recorded on the blockchain, there's no room for manipulation or disputes.
Oh, interesting.
Everyone gets credit for their contributions, and the focus shifts to collaboration and achieving shared goals.
This is all sounding impressive, but how is ICSO managing to pull this off? We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we think about organizations. It's hard to imagine traditional institutions just embracing this new model overnight.
You're right, it's a big challenge.
Yeah.
And ICSO understands they can't just build the technology and expect the world to follow. They're taking a strategic and collaborative approach, working with partners across different sectors to demonstrate the value and feasibility of pods.
They're leading by example, showing rather than telling.
They're piloting projects in areas like climate action, sustainable development, and governance, showcasing the real-world impact of pods. And they're also actively engaging with policymakers, regulators, and industry leaders to create a more supportive environment for this new paradigm to thrive.
It sounds like they're building a movement.
Fostering a community of entrepreneurs and thought leaders who believe in the transformative potential of pods. They're providing the tools, resources, and support for this community to grow and flourish.
I'm starting to grasp the scope of what ICSO is trying to achieve. It's not just about a better app or platform. It's about reshaping how we collaborate and get things done.
Exactly. And that's why I find their work so fascinating. They're tackling some of the most fundamental challenges facing humanity. And they're doing it not with incremental improvements, but with bold new approaches that have the potential to unlock a more equitable, sustainable, and prosperous future.
I am hooked. Let's dive into real-world examples of how ICSO is putting pods into action. We'll explore the projects they're involved in and the tangible impact they're having.
We were discussing how ICSO is taking this very hands-on approach to demonstrating the power of pods. They're actively building and deploying these systems in the real world.
That's what's exciting about their work. They're not just, sitting in a lab somewhere.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Yeah,
Collaborating with real organizations and tackling some of the world's biggest challenges.
exactly. And one of the most compelling examples is their work in the field of climate action. Green Climate DAR is using pods to revolutionize the way we fund and incentivize climate solutions.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about Green Climate DAR. They're focused on carbon credits, right?
That's right. Carbon credits are permits that allow companies to emit a certain amount of greenhouse gases. The idea is to create a market-based system where companies are rewarded for reducing their emissions or investing in projects that remove carbon from the atmosphere.
Okay, it sounds good in theory, but hasn't there been criticism carbon markets can be inefficient, opaque, and prone to fraud?
Yeah, you're right. Traditional carbon markets have been plagued by issues. That's where ICSO's technology comes in. By leveraging blockchain and smart contracts, it's creating a system where every transaction is transparent, verifiable, and tamper-proof.
It's like creating a digital ledger for carbon credits.
Yes.
You can track their origin impact and ensure they're not being double counted or manipulated.
Precisely. This increased transparency and accountability is attracting more investors.
Okay.
And it's ensuring that funds are directed towards projects making a real difference.
So it sounds like a win for everyone. Investors feel confident their money is being used effectively, and products on the ground can access the funding they need to scale their impact. What other examples can you share?
Sure, another fascinating project is the Brooklyn microgrid. It's aimed at creating a more decentralized and resilient energy system for a neighborhood in New York City.
I'm picturing rooftop solar panels and people trading energy with their neighbors. Am I on the right track?
You are. The Brooklyn microgrid is using pods to create a peer-to-peer energy market, where residents buy and sell renewable energy directly with each other. Imagine a neighborhood where solar panels on your roof can power your neighbor's house, and you get compensated instantly through a secure blockchain transaction.
It's like taking control of your own energy destiny and creating a more sustainable and resilient community.
Nestle, the world's largest food and beverage company.
I wouldn't have guessed that a company like that would be so forward-thinking.
You might be surprised. Nestle is actually very committed to sustainability and transparency. They leverage blockchain and pods to track the journey of their products from farm to table.
So they're using pods to create a more transparent and accountable supply chain.
Exactly. Imagine being able to scan a QR code on your chocolate bar and see where the cocoa beans came from, who farmed them, how they were processed. This level of transparency builds trust with consumers. It allows Nestle to address issues in their supply chain more efficiently and empowers them to make more informed decisions about sourcing and production.
It's incredible to think how ICSO's technology can be applied in so many contexts, from climate action to renewable energy to supply chain transparency. What other areas are they exploring?
They're involved in a really wide range of projects, from decentralized governance systems to innovative healthcare solutions. They're even working on platforms for digital identity and data management that could revolutionize how we interact online and control our personal information.
My mind is officially blown. ICSO is pushing the boundaries of what's possible with this technology. Are there any downsides to all of this? It sounds too good to be true. Is there anything we should be concerned about?
It's important to acknowledge that no technology is without its potential challenges. One of the key concerns with pods is the issue of security.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a concern. If everything is automated and decentralized, doesn't that make these systems more vulnerable to hacking or manipulation?
It's a valid concern, and it's something that ICSO takes very seriously. They're investing heavily in cybersecurity measures and working with experts to ensure pods are secure. One of the advantages of using blockchain technology is that it's inherently tamper-proof.
If someone tried to hack into a pod or alter the data, It would be immediately obvious to everyone.
The transparency makes it difficult to hide malicious activity. But security is an ongoing challenge, and ICSO and the wider community are constantly working to address.
It's reassuring to know that they're aware of these challenges and actively working to mitigate them.
Another challenge ICSO faces is the need for education and awareness. Pods are a radical departure from traditional thinking. It takes time for people to grasp the concept and its implications. Not everyone is comfortable with decentralized autonomous organizations, and there's a lot of work explaining these systems and why they matter.
They're not just building a technology, but an entire ecosystem around it.
Yeah.
They need to convince developers, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and everyday citizens that this isn't just some futuristic fantasy, but a practical and powerful solution to real challenges.
That's exactly what ICSO is doing. They're engaging with a wide range of stakeholders, from governments to universities to community organizations, to build awareness and understanding of pods and their potential.
They've convinced me. I'm impressed with the scope and ambition of their work. But I think we've covered a lot. Maybe it's time to give our listener a moment to process this, then we can come back for the final part of our deep dive. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into ICSO and pods. We've talked about the technology, the applications, some challenges, but I want to zoom out now and look at the bigger picture. What does all of this mean for the future of organizations and society as a whole?
ICSO is proposing a paradigm shift, a fundamental rethinking of how we structure and manage human collaboration. The implications are far-reaching. This is touching everything from the way we work to the way we govern ourselves.
One of the things that keeps coming up for me is this idea of empowerment. It seems like pods have the potential to give individuals and communities greater control over the systems that shape their lives.
Yeah, that's a key aspect of ICSO's vision. They believe that by decentralizing power and distributing it more equitably, we can create a more just and sustainable world. Think about the energy sector, for example. Right now, in many parts of the world, we're reliant on large centralized utilities for our electricity.
And that can be a real problem,
Yeah,
especially when those utilities are prioritizing profits over people or the environment.
exactly. But with energy pods, communities can generate and share their own renewable energy. And that creates more resilient and sustainable systems. They're no longer just passive consumers, they're active participants in shaping their energy future.
It makes me think about all the other areas where this kind of decentralized approach could be applied: healthcare, education, even governance itself. Are we talking about a future where people have more direct control over the systems that affect their lives?
ICSO believes so. Imagine a healthcare pod that allows patients to securely control and share their own medical data, facilitating more personalized and efficient care. Or an education pod that connects learners directly with educators and resources from around the world, democratizing access to knowledge.
It's a whole new way of thinking about how we organize ourselves as a society. It's not just about efficiency, it's about agency. It's about giving people the tools to create the kind of world they want to live in. It's mind-blowing stuff, but it's also a bit daunting. Where do we begin to grapple with the scale of this transformation?
It's understandable to feel overwhelmed. ICSO's vision is ambitious, and it's going to require a collective effort to make it a reality. But I think the key is to start with small steps. Experiment and learn.
Focus on building specific solutions to specific problems.
Yeah,
And then let those solutions scale and evolve organically.
exactly. ICSO is laying the groundwork. They're providing the tools and frameworks for others to build upon. They're not trying to dictate the future, but rather to empower individuals and communities to create it themselves.
That's a really important point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about ICSO imposing their vision. It's about giving people tools to shape their destinies.
Precisely. That's why I believe ICSO's work is so important. They're not just building a company, they're building a movement. They're fostering a community of innovators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders committed to creating a more equitable, sustainable, and prosperous future.
They inspired me, and this has been an incredible journey exploring the world of pods and the potential they hold. But before we wrap up, is there anything else our listeners should take away from this?
The most important thing to remember is this is just the beginning. Pods are a nascent technology, and we're just starting to glimpse their potential.
It's not about predicting the future. It's about being open to possibilities.
Exactly. ICSO has shown us a different future is possible, where organizations are more agile, transparent, and responsive to the needs of people and the planet. But it's up to all of us to embrace this vision and work together to make it a reality.
On that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into ICSO and the world of pods. To our listener, if you're curious about pods and the potential of this technology, I encourage you to explore further. Check out IXO's website, connect with others passionate about this space, and start imagining how you can be a part of building this new world. Because ultimately, the future of organizations is not something that will be decided for us. It's something we create together.